Welcome to my class. In the previous class, we talked about the circular flow of income. We talked about money flows. We talked about real flows. And in that, I told you that I'm going to take up leakages and injections. So, in that context, now again, just to reiterate, what is a circular flow? And since we just have the two-sector economy, let's just talk about households, firms, right? Now, the firms pay factor incomes for factor services to the households. Remember, we talked about that. Factor incomes is wages, rent, interest, and profit. So they get all of that. Now, households obviously will spend that on goods and services, the expenditure on goods and services. So that's the circular flow of income that goes on. But in that, there's something which is known as leakages and there's something known as injections. So once again, the circular flow of income represents a continuous movement of money and resources in an economy. So whichever economy you can think of, there is always a flow between the different sectors. It goes on. So we take the two-sector economy just to make it simple for you to understand. And in that, there's a continuous movement of money and resources. So firms produce with the help of land, labor, factors of production, land, labor, capital, enterprise, which is taken from the household. And in turn, the firms rewards them or gives them their due, the income, that is wages, rent, interest, and profit. All right. So once that's in their pocket, the households have a lot of demand. So to fulfill their demands, they buy goods and services which are produced by the firms. So this circular flow, we have two main components which are leakages and injections. And they play a crucial role in economic activities. Now let's talk about leakages. Leakages are what? Leak. What do you mean by leaking? You can think of a leaking pipe. Okay, so let's just suppose I'm going to show it to you like this. So suppose this goes on and they go on with that. Okay. Now, talking about leakages. Leakages what? Something leaking out. So this is going on. The circular flow keeps going on. There is something known as leakages. So there are certain leakages that take place. Leakages means income that is generated or whatever. There's something known as something is withdrawn from there. Leakages are withdrawals of income from the circular flow. Then if there is a withdrawal, it will reduce the total income available for spending. So if there's some leakage in the income flow, what will happen? There'll be less available. So for examples of leakages now, they're termed as leakages. So that is savings. We can talk about as savings. What are savings? Income saved instead of spent on goods and services. So for example, if the households don't spend on goods and services and they save it, then there won't be a seamless circular flow. There has been some leakage. Then taxes. Now, what are taxes? Something that the government collects. So the income that is collected by the government also in the form of taxes is not circulated in the circular flow. And we have what is the See, we have the government sector here. If you're talking about, they're not just two sectors, household firms. There's something known as government sector and the trade sector. Trade sector, we have imports. Suppose if you're talking about imports, that means you're spending on foreign produced goods and services. When you're spending, your money goes out. It's an outflow from the domestic economy. So these are the leakages that takes place in the circular flow. Okay. So, and if you're talking about the three phases in the circular flow, it's always production, distribution, and disposition. So firms produce and they dispose, and that means they distribute income, and disposition means expenditure. So that keeps on going on. So is that clear? So we just spoke about leakages in the circular flow. Now, when you're talking about leakages, what will happen? How does it impact the economy? So, if you're saving or if you're being taxed, what happens? That means reduced consumption. You have less to spend on your consumption. You're not you're not spending right now. You're just saving. So you're saving and you're not spending. So your consumption pattern or consumption expenditure has been reduced. Then again, that means your demand is reduced. If a decrease aggregate demand, since when we are talking about macroeconomy, so you talk about aggregates. So decreased aggregate demand, that means less spending on domestic goods and services. And because of this, perhaps there's a slowdown in economic growth. So it'll lead to lower production because in the firm there is going to be a glut in the market. There's not enough demand. So there'll be lower production and lower employment levels. Okay, so the unemployment levels will rise. So that is the impact of leakages, as you've just seen. Now, that was leakages. Now let's just talk about injections. What are injections? Which means something which is to go in. Okay, so this goes out, but this goes in. Is that right? So can you tell me what are injections? So when you're giving an injection, what happens? Some liquid is put in. Suppose you're taking an injection of you're given an injection for rabies. I mean, anything. So injections, what they are induced into the economy. They are additions of income into the circular flow. So into the circular flow, these injections come. So what are these? Injection. So what are these injections? So they are addition of income into the circular flow, and it increases the total income available for spending. Now, for example, what are the type of injections? One is investment. So first example could be investment. By whom? By businesses or on capital goods, infrastructure, and new projects. So, any investment, anything by way of investment, will help to increase the total income available for spending. That is injection. Then you have what is known as government spending. And what is government spending? Expenditure on public goods, services, and infrastructure. So anything that the government spends or its expenditure on public goods. So what is when it's spending, it generates income and the demand will increase. So that that brings about income into the circular flow. Then exports. So what are exports? Income generated from selling domestic goods and services to foreign markets. So these are the injections. Once again, injections are additions of income into the circular flow, which increases the total income available for spending. Types of injections are investment, government spending, exports. Investment is spending by businesses on capital goods or infrastructure and some new projects. So it steps up income. It generates income. With the generation of income, it'll step up demand, etc. So government spending is expenditure on public goods, services, and infrastructure. And exports is income generated from selling domestic goods and services to foreign markets. When you sell goods abroad, you get money. That's how you get money will come into your economy, the circular flow. Okay, for example, if you've produced a pen and you selling it out to another country, to another nation, that money, that pen that was produced in your country now is going to another country. So it generates income. They are paying for it. So important thing is that injections and leakages should balance. You should have there should be a sense of balance. When leakages equal injections, the economy is in equilibrium with no surplus or deficit in total income. And achieving equilibrium is essential for stable economic growth and sustainability. Now, the leakages and injections are always very important because uh, government shapes its fiscal policy to manage spending, taxation, and investment. What is the need of the hour? If there is too much of inflation, then what? If there's deflation, then how to go about it? Monetary policy again, but this is done by the central bank. Central bank actions to control money supply, interest rates, and credit availability. And trade policy, strategies to promote export, manage imports, and balance international trade. So once again, so important thing is what are the policy implications? Okay, so what are they? Uh, what happens? Government, because there should be a balance between injections and leakages, so it has to be done with some government intervention. If government intervenes, it does it through a fiscal policy. And if it is from the reserve bank or the central bank, which to controls the money supply and interest rates and credit availability, then it's a monetary policy. Central bank. That's how they regulate the leakages and injections. The whole thing is about leakages and injections. If you're talking about this, one of the most important topics. Of course, the question is not normally you get a question as what are What do you mean by injections and what are leakages? Give examples. So, leakages are withdrawals from the circular flow, you can write, and they reduce the size of circular flow. They lead to contraction in the production process in an economy. And examples are saving, taxes, and imports. And you can get a true and false also, or one mark question. And if you're talking about injections, the addition to the circular flow of income, they increase the size of circular flow, they lead to expansion in the production process in an economy, and they are investment, government spending, and exports. Anyway, so uh, policy implications, what it can be government intervention, it can be from the banks, regulation by the banks, and of course, trade policies. So, what are the trade policies? The trade policies could be to promote exports, manage imports, balance international trade. So, trade policy could be depending. You can give protection to them, you can promote your exports or manage imports, which are or prioritize, all of that. So, remember now when COVID 19, the pandemic happened, increased savings. There are a lot of savings here. People were saving due to uncertainty, countered by government stimulus injections to support economic recovery. So there were a lot of savings due to uncertainty. The government came in and in, injected rather for money, income, or through what? Through infrastructural projects like, you know, or say infrastructure to build up the infrastructure. That's the best thing, roads and bridges, etc. That stimulates economic growth and creates jobs to support economic recovery. That was seen, in fact, you must have seen that everywhere. So these leakages and injections are a fundamental concept in the circular flow of income, and they influence economic activity. So once again, let me tell you what are the economic activities: production, distribution, disposition, etc. And these are the three basic, and you can of course think of others too, like um, say production, the process of creating goods and services, manufacturing cars, growing crops, developing software. That's production. Distribution means the movement of goods and services from producers to consumers and businesses, say transportation and logistics, wholesale and retail trade, marketing and sales. So that's distribution. And then disposition, that is expenditure on when you utilize goods and services by the households, buying groceries, using public transportation, subscribing to uh, streaming services, etc. So these are the basics that we must try to understand. We understand all of this. So if I ask you a question as what are the effects? What are the effects of injection? Like, remember what were the effects of leakages? We said reduced consumption, decreased aggregate demand, etc. So, in this, what would be the impact on the economy because of the effects of injections? Can you tell me? Let's just think about it. Higher spending on goods and services and productive assets. So, there'll be increased consumption. There'll be increased consumption and investment. Okay. Then expanded aggregate demand. So here, remember, when there are leakages, decrease aggregate demand. So here there'll be increased aggregate demand. The aggregate demand will increase. And remember, because of decreased aggregate demand, there was a fall in employment output, etc. And this will boost the economy. How? It will boost economic growth. Higher demand can stimulate production. There'll be more production, more output, production, employment, and overall economic activity. Okay, so is that right? So once again, so a quick revision before we conclude that regarding leakages and injections in the circular flow of income, as you see, they are fundamental concepts in the circular flow of income and they influence economic activity and stability. And because of this, it's very important to understand and for the government to manage these components. They are critical. Critical for whom? The policymakers, the businesses, the individuals. Why? To promote sustainable economic growth and prosperity. Without that, you cannot think of all of this. Okay, so uh, again, just a quick revision, as I said. Let's just talk about continuous movement that goes on between the different sectors, continuous movement of money and resources in an economy, continuous all. We've just taken two sectors, but of course there are broadly four. We can take the government sector and the foreign trade sector. Whatever it is, there is a circular flow which goes on, a continuous movement, and there are two main components which either add or subtract money from this circular flow. So factor, again, let me just say, households own factors of production and they give it, the firms take them from them or they employ them, and for their services, for the using the factors of production, they give them factor incomes as wages, rent, interest, and profit. And with those incomes, there's disposition. That means the household spends on goods and services, and thus it goes on. And in this, there are two main important components: leakages, and injections. Yeah, leakages means something which goes out, and injections means which goes in into this circular flow of income. So leakages are what? They are withdrawals from the flow. So it reduces the total income. And the examples are savings. So income saved instead of spent on goods and services. Taxes. And you know what? When you're talking about macro level, it is everybody's saving. So do you think it's good? No. We're not talking at a micro level. So savings, taxes, and the government taxes, portions of income collected by the government. These are leakages. So government also from time to time, they rethink their policies about taxation. Every year there's something new. And we have imports. The foreign trade sector is the leakage means when we take out money and send it abroad for buying goods and services. Those are spending on foreign produced goods and services. When you're spending on that, your money goes out from the domestic economy. So these from the circular flow, these are the things that they are like withdrawals. They get out, they are leakages in the system. And the effect of leakage, again, let me reiterate once again, as we spoke about. So what is it? That is reduce consumption, because there were savings, reduce consumption, because of maybe savings and taxes. There are savings and taxes, so obviously I have less income to spend. So again, because it's we are talking about macro level, it leads to decreased aggregate demand, and when the aggregate demand is less, it will slow down the economic growth, right? So slow down of economic growth. That's it. Because if there is less demand, what will the producers do? Lower production. When they lower production, how do they do it? Hmm? They have to sort of lay off workers. So employment will fall, output will fall, etc. Then we come to the next is injections in the circular flow. What are injections? They are additions. Can you see the plus sign? These are additions of income into the circular flow, which increases the total income available for spending. Now, what are the types of injections? So, again, investments made by the businesses on capital goods or infrastructure, any new project. Then you have the government again, government spending, expenditure on public goods, services, and infrastructure. Whenever it's spending, that generates income. Like, for example, if it's building roads and bridges, people who are involved, all the gamut of engineers and workers and everything connected to that, all the industry which is connected to it, all will be benefited. There'll be um, what is known as income generation. People, the demand will increase. So, expenditure on public goods, and again, what is government spending? This is all expenditure, etc., and taxation. This is fiscal policy of the government. And exports. The foreign trade sector is the exports. Exports means when you're selling your products outside, when you're selling your domestic products outside to foreign markets, then you're getting money home. That income goes into the circular flow. Now, if when you're talking about injections, so what are the effects of injections? So, what are they? Obviously, if there's more income, there'll be increased consumption and investment, higher spending on goods and services and productive assets, and your aggregate demand will expand. So, increased consumption, okay, and then your aggregate demand will increase. So, more demand for goods and services. And if there is an increase in aggregate demand, this will boost the economy. This will boost economic growth. Higher demand can stimulate production, employment, and overall economic activity. I hope I'm clear. And of course, important thing is that if why is it important for the government to keep in view the um, leakages and injections in mind, because they have to rethink their policy, their fiscal policy. They have to manage their spending, taxation, investment, monetary policy, the central bank actions to control money supply, interest rates, and credit availability, and the trade policies strategy to promote exports and manage imports and balance international trade. So, leakages and injections are fundamental concepts. So, what are they? They're fundamental concepts in the circular flow of income influencing economic activity and stability. Once again, what is economic activity? In the circular flow of income, production, distribution, and disposition, basically. And understanding and managing these components are critical for policymakers, businesses, and individuals to promote what? Sustainable economic growth and prosperity. So that's the little leakages and injections. So define leakages, define injections. Give examples of leakages, give examples of injections. Make a diagram to show the leakages and injections in the economy. 3 questions. And what are the impact of injections? What is the impact of leakages? Or so two more questions, or you can just say there can be another question is what is the impact of injections and leakages in the economy? You can get a 3 marks question for that. Okay, then see you in the next class. Okay, thanks.